Welcome to Silicon Valley Nonprofits, a service of KMVT Community Media. I'm Bev Linehan, your host, and today our guests are Marti Tedesco and Gordon Clark from the Peninsula Open Space Trust, or POST. Thank you both for being here. It's very nice to have you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
POST is one of my favorite organizations for the work you do. So we're going to tell our viewers a little bit more about that work. So let's start out, Marti and Gordon. Tell us how you do carry out your work. I think a lot of people don't understand how POST works.
So Peninsula Open Space Trust, or POST, as you said, has been around since 1977. And we're a private nonprofit. There's about 50 people, and we're headquartered in Palo Alto. And we work primarily in San Mateo, Santa Clara, and a little bit in Santa Cruz County. So we carry out our work by raising money from private individuals and foundations, and then using that money to protect open space in the peninsula and in the South Bay for the benefit of everyone who lives here.
So without the resources, you really can't carry out that great work. You have to have the resources to even begin to find that open space that we want to continue to protect.
That's right.
A big, important part of it.
Yeah.
So Gordon, tell us a little bit more about how you work.
Yeah, so POST's primary operating model is to purchase lands from willing sellers, private landowners that are under some kind of threat or have some kind of conservation value, and then to work with the appropriate public agency partner to transfer those lands into public ownership so that they can be well maintained and open to provide for public access. And so oftentimes in the interim time when POST is owning those lands, we undergo stewardship work on them to prepare those lands for transfer to a public agency. We also work with several dozen private landowners on protecting land through conservation easements, which keeps those lands in private ownership and maintains the conservation values of those lands, be it natural resource protection, recreational protection, agricultural protection, other resource values like that.
So one word I heard you say, willing sellers. So sometimes that can take a while for you to uncover or help someone who's got land to be willing to consider what to do about it with regard to open space. I'm sure that's a process.
Yeah, so a lot of our work, like so many others, is built on relationships, and so we do develop relationships with landowners over years and in some cases decades, so that if they're interested in conservation options at any point in time, they know who to call and how to reach us.
I think that's kind of the hidden part of your work, this long-term relationship building. It can take a long time, but it's well worth it, so I'm glad you're doing it. Marti, give us an example of a project that you're working on right now that's going to be great, but it's taking a little while.
Sure. So our work is focused right now on 4 key program areas: public access, redwoods, farmland, and wildlife linkages. So we discovered a willing seller over on the San Mateo coast in early 2017 that was selling 58 acres of private beach. And so POST, because we have the resources from our donors and our private foundation grantors, we were able to act quickly to secure this 58-acre beach, which we're calling Tenitas Creek Beach.
Oh boy!
So
58 acres.
58 acres, and it's absolutely stunning right at the end of Tenitas Creek Road and Highway 1 there.
Oh boy!
And this is a property that's been in private hands for a long, long time. It hasn't gotten a lot of TLC in the most recent years, and so working very closely with the county and with San Mateo County Parks, bringing together a vision to turn this into a public beach where people can get down safely. It had been used by the public, but not used very responsibly and quite abused, and that's how it came to our attention. So a bit of an environmental catastrophe, which we hope to reverse, and then to improve the site so that people can go and enjoy the beach responsibly.
Wonderful. So that's going to be a process, but you must have been very excited when that transaction actually happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And probably at that point, the seller, too, was very pleased with the result. What can happen there?
Yeah, there's a lot of work going forward, and Gordon can speak to more about the fundraising that we've had to do for that and what our plans are. Because in many ways, buying the property is just the beginning.
Yes.
So
Preserving it over time.
So this has been a really neat public-private partnership between Post and San Mateo County Parks Department. Among the many things that we've done on the site have been to, like Marty was saying, provide safe access, emergency vehicle access down to the beach, and to begin to think about what some of the other plans are that we're already beginning to pursue for how to bring about safe, responsible public access to this property that is in such high demand for access to a mile-long beach just over the hill on the San Mateo coast. And so we worked with the county to secure a $5 million appropriation from the state to support this vision that we share with the county to bring this all about.
Very good.
And we've raised funds from individual donors as well as private foundations to really expedite and fast-track this process so that this land can be available for the benefit of everyone to enjoy in a matter of years, short number of years. So we're really excited about that, and it wouldn't be possible without the support of our donors and our funders, and of course our wonderful public agency partners at San Mateo County Parks.
It takes a team, doesn't it, to do all of this?
It really does.
Yes, and a real commitment, because these things can just take such a long time, for sure. Well, what about your partnership with the San Mateo County Parks? What about that?
You want to speak to that, Marty?
Well, I was going to say we have a number of partners. Not all of them are governmental agencies, but since you asked about county parks, we work closely with the open space districts and the county parks frequently for properties that are appropriate for public access, because they are really set up to be the long-term stewards of those lands. They know how to run parks and preserves. They know where to cut trails. They know how to manage public expectations and public funds around that. So we're not necessarily at Post set up to do that. So we're really set up to bring the opportunities to them and kind of like a relay team, pass it to them when they're ready to do what they're best at.
And again, I think that transfer and that partnership takes a lot of communication, a lot of patience and understanding. I was thinking too about the skill set of the people who automatically are working in these parks all the time. They know how to keep preservation in mind and sustainability, and some of the things that when you're just working on getting the land aren't necessarily at your forefront. But
yeah, they have the staff to kind of manage those lands in a really responsible way, and our work in protecting these lands at these critical moments in time wouldn't be possible without all these public agency partners that are managing tens of thousands of acres of publicly accessible land in really responsible ways that's balancing natural resource protection as well as safe, responsible public access. So.
For sure. Well, what about Bear Creek Redwoods? Who's going to tell us about that?
Well, we're both going to tell you a little bit about that. Yeah, it's a perfect example of really taking the long view. So Post was able to step in over 20 years ago to purchase this. Yeah, it's over 1,000 acres. I think it's over 1,000 acres. Yep. It was slated to become a golf course with luxury homes. And our partners at the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District really wanted to turn it into a preserve, but they didn't have the capital at that time. We were able to step in, secure the property with capital, and it's taken every bit of 20 years since to make sure that Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District has the funds that they need in order to do the planning and go through the public due diligence to open it as a park. And it will open this summer to the public. It's just 3 miles south of it's right as you pass Los Gatos going down 17 towards Santa Cruz.
Oh, really?
So with, Muir Woods to the north and now Bear Creek Redwoods to the south, it's another example of just a gorgeous redwood preserve with a ton of history to it. And there's a lot of accessibility there. There's a lot of challenging hiking there. There's a lot of interpretive, educational opportunity there. And so there's some other things that Gordon will talk about too. So it's just been this very, it's not for the faint of heart, this work. We've had to be tenacious and focused.
Yeah, there's also some really neat Native American grounds there. It has a really rich cultural history, and so all of that creates these wonderful interpretive opportunities for people who are going to be able to visit this property. What that also came with has been some challenges that MidPenn's, our public agency partner, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, has been navigating in addressing some of the dilapidated buildings on the site, the challenges for safe public parking on the site. And so when folks ask us, well, why does it take 20 years? Well, we're working with these really wonderful public agency partners that are really thoughtfully and carefully addressing these pretty major challenges that some of these sites can pose in really careful, responsible ways. And as a public agency, MidPenn is dependent on public funding to support what they do. But one of the other ways that Post partners with these public agencies is to support ballot measures that enhance and accelerate their work. And so the funding for Bear Creek Redwoods was dramatically increased when in 2014, thanks to support from Post, Measure AA passed, which provides significant support and funding for the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District over the decades to come, that has enabled them to dedicate more resources to getting these lands that they've owned for some period of time open to the public more quickly, thanks to the support of the voters who passed that measure and made that possible.
So a quasi-advocacy role that you play too when you're working with these partners to make things happen. I think of these as, you know, living classrooms for all ages to be able to come and explore, as you said, some of the indigenous peoples and also some of the things growing there that we wouldn't ordinarily get to see, that have sort of been hidden from view for a long time. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Well, I love what you do as partners. That's really a terrific part of what you do, what you bring to the party. So this took a long time. Why did it take so long?
Well, I think it was, like I mentioned earlier, it was just a lot of the challenges that the site posed. So, you know, MidPenn has to abide by a lot of the different rules and regulations around making land available for public access. There were a lot of challenges on the site having to do with old dilapidated buildings that had to be addressed to minimize any kind of public liability issues associated with the public accessing that property. There's also, the site is challenged for parking. So with really popular preserves that have been in the works of being created for decades, there's a lot of excitement among the public in accessing these lands. So MidPenn wants to make sure that when those lands become available, that there's enough parking on site that a decent number of people can go out and enjoy them. So those are just some of the challenges that MidPenn has been navigating, and with the increased funding available as of 5 years ago through Measure AA, they've been able to dedicate more resources to address the many different challenges posed by that site to bring about public access this summer. So.
It's a funny thing when you think about preserving open space. I think what came to my mind for a long time was these pristine lands that, you know, as you drive through, they look very natural and pristine, but the nature of so many of them is that they have been neglected for a long time. So oftentimes when we preserve a property, there could be numerous years worth of work to remove hazardous materials, buildings that are next to creeks and impeding the watershed.
I'm sure.
There's just a lot that goes on that you can't see that needs to be cleaned up. So that's a part of it. And then, of course, you know, California has really pretty specific processes for this type of stuff. And so our public agency partners manage all of that. So we don't have to.
Well, in our closing moments together, please let our viewers know how best to get a hold of you. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who'd like to volunteer if they can. So how do they best reach you?
The best way is to look us up online. And I think you'll probably be showing our web address, openspacetrust.org.
Yes.
So look us up, sign up for our email list. Those are two great places to start. And if you're interested in volunteering, you can look at our volunteer page on our site too.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you both for being with us, and all good fortune to the work you're doing at Post.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.